Hello, welcome to InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw. In February, Salem police officers began wearing body-worn cameras. Now, this did not happen overnight. Wearing body cameras is part of a change in policing itself here in Salem. As Police Chief Trevor Womack said, quote, "Doing the work to build trust with every member of our community is a priority." This is part of the department's stated vision, principled policing. How do body cameras fit into that? And when they are turned on or off, what about privacy? Do police get to look at the footage or edit it or even throw it away? And what is principal policing? Well, here to help us with these and other questions is Acting Deputy Chief Brandon Ditto. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Wendy.
Oh my goodness, where do we start? Let's start with the fact that the officers started wearing body-worn cameras on patrol in February. How's that going?
So far, so good. So we're obviously checking in daily to make sure the functional use is going well, and I'm happy to say that it is. So
no surprises there, huh?
No, they're functioning and they're reliable cameras, and that was really the goal of the officers. That was the first thing that was asked, is that I want something that is ease of use. I want to be able to just tap the button and ensure that it's recording. And I want to make sure that it's going to be functional for wear.
What are the officers saying about using them? Are they giving you some feedback about maybe some changes they're looking at?
Small changes just on position placement on the body, because as you know, we wear a lot of equipment. It's usually about 30 pounds of equipment. So everybody trying to find the spot that fits best on their torso. As we have it now, all our cameras are torso mounted or along the belt line for our detectives. So trying to fit it with your other gear, with flashlights, batons, or other tools of the trade, that's kind of been the challenge, is making sure that it fits, but also that it still captures the angles and the totality of the incident the best way we can.
Excuse me, I'm still gasping over the fact that it ends up being 30 pounds that they have to wear when they go out. 30
Yes.
pounds of equipment.
Yes.
Well, that's something I didn't know. Is there any feedback yet from the community?
I haven't heard much. We heard a lot on the front end.
Hmm.
So this has been bubbling up for multiple years. More than 5 years, we've been hearing calls from the community for us to have body-worn cameras. And when it comes down to it, it was simply a funding issue. So when we look at this, it was about $800,000 to get our program rolling. And that's quite a bit of money when you're looking at, it's either you're cutting 6 to 7 cops potentially to get body cameras out in the field when we're already in a constrained environment for personnel, or we needed another revenue source. And luckily the budget committee back in 2021 in May approved the funding for our body-worn camera program.
In the beginning, you did have goals for the startup use of these cameras. Have they met those goals satisfactorily?
Yes, we're very happy that the cameras are functioning as well as we expected. So we did exhaustive research and testing for the cameras. So that included testing in very wet conditions to see how the lens would handle rain pouring on it consistently, if it would scuff easily if an officer fell to the ground, if it could get knocked off the officer quickly in a skirmish, things like that. And through that exhaustive testing, we found that the camera that we chose was best equipped to handle the field conditions that officers are put through. And so with that, we're seeing that replicated out in the field now in the day-to-day use, that it is a reliable, functional camera that people are very happy with.
How does the body-worn camera complement your principal policing initiative?
Well, principal policing is all about quality decision-making and quality relationship building, in my mind. I know from the years as a police officer that people want to feel safe, appreciated, heard in any of these interactions with the police. So what the body-worn camera does is it does provide that mutual accountability and an objective eye on these incidents that help hold both parties accountable to have an interaction that's pleasant and agreeable to both parties. And that's that's the ultimate goal. And we have seen studies that have shown that it does improve those conditions for both parties.
You also consulted other police departments around the country. What kind of advice, based on their own experience using body-worn cameras, did they give you?
So yes, we did. We consulted a number of agencies in Oregon. We looked at policy direction of agencies throughout the country. Because again, although we're new to this space, other organizations are not. So they've had cameras for 7, 8 years, some of these larger organizations such as LAPD. And so when we're looking at those things, what we found from talking to most everyone is you need to have a good, reliable camera, good, reliable software. You want to be able to trust the equipment. You want to decrease the chance of user error, because there's plenty of human error in day-to-day business that comes along with any job. And so reducing the chances of human error was paramount as we were reviewing these cameras.
You also wanted to get the community's input. How did you go about getting it?
Yes. So a couple of the things we did is we have an advisory council to the chief, which is essentially a cross-section of different demographics within the community, different faith-based organizations, things like that. And we would show our policy or what our procedures would look like to them and present that to them and get that feedback. So that was a great opportunity. We also presented it to our Community Police Review Board, and our Community Police Review Board has been in place for, I would say, 25 years or more. And that is our independent body that can view complaints if the complainant who calls in a complaint to an officer and once the complaint is resolved, if the citizen doesn't believe the complaint was resolved to their satisfaction, they can come to that board for some recourse. So we did present that to the Community Police Review Board as well.
And what did they tell you of their concerns?
So in general, it was very positive feedback. So they liked how, I guess, methodical we were in evaluating and reviewing systems. And the policy development was, of course, not haphazard. We reviewed policies from around the country and trying to look at proven practices for success in other organizations. And I think that they saw that we labored over these decisions on the front end to make sure we had a quality program on the back end.
What were the officers' concerns beyond just body wearing a camera and the technical part?
Yeah, again, it just came down to functionality and reliability. That was a consistent theme we found, is that people were eager to get the cameras, and they've been eager for a lot of years. And so they just wanted to ensure that they had a good, solid piece of equipment that they could trust, and that they weren't going to get scrutinized if, say, they fall to the ground and the camera turns off. Nothing that they had done to turn the camera off, but it inadvertently turns off, and then they face some sort of accusation. So that would come up, is that they want to make sure that this thing will be able to handle the stresses of the job, the physical stress on the camera system as it's out in field use.
Thank you for that. Now, a major issue with both the public and the police around the country is something called prior review, where, when, and even if an officer can review footage prior to making a statement or writing reports. What's Salem PD's position on that?
Yeah, so we do allow officers as a course of daily business to review their body-worn camera footage to document incidents accurately. And really, when our officers take 12 to 15 calls a day sometimes. And so what this tool does is it provides us an opportunity to write more accurate reports after they take all those calls for service. And this is something we've been doing for a number of years, whether we were writing in a notebook or capturing video from another camera footage, things like that. Our detectives have been using cameras in interview rooms for decades. And it's really just a common way for you to capture all that information that you're gathering, especially when you're dealing with multiple incidents. And what most of our officers are doing is a 12-hour shift. And so in that amount of time to try to capture the totality of an event, sometimes scratching in a notebook is not enough. Now, with that said, there are certain critical incidents that are outside of our control. And those ones, so for example, if there's a critical incident here in Marion County, such as an officer-involved shooting, our officers would not be allowed to view their camera footage prior to making a statement during that type of incident. So that those incidents are controlled by the local district attorney's office, that the entirety of that investigation. And the officer would make a statement. After they make their initial statement, they're allowed to view the body-worn camera footage. And if there are other items that they would like to explain as they view it after they've made their initial statement, they'll have an opportunity to do that.
What about those who say, but isn't it better to have the officers' impressions of how things went down before they look at the footage so that that is also more accurate because that's how they saw it at the time?
Yes, and like I said, it's two different things. It's one, it's if we're dealing with a critical incident, which may be high stress, where we know that memory gaps can happen. We know that perceptual narrowing or tunnel vision can occur, auditory blunting. Officers may not hear the things that are picked up on a camera, things like that. In those incidents, those high-level critical incidents, like I'm talking about in an officer-involved shooting, those are the ones that you do rely on the perceptions of the officer. And that is paramount to ensure that I want to know what you felt, saw, heard, smelt at the time of the incident. But as a course of day-to-day business, just to document, I talked to a citizen about a noise complaint or something like that, and they gave me a description of the house across the street. That would be something totally different.
So just to recap, when it comes to prior review, when is it okay for an officer to look at the footage before writing a report or giving a statement?
Just as a course of day-to-day business, if it's not considered a critical incident.
And
so
when excuse me.
I was just going to say, when Senate Bill 111 is what we follow as guidance for when officers can view the footage. If it's a Senate Bill 111 situation, such as an officer-involved shooting, then the investigation is controlled by the local district attorney. Here in Marion County, the district attorney's office would not allow officers to view that footage prior to making an initial statement.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. Now to some questions that people frequently ask, which you happen to have on your website as well, and I'm going to just blitz through them with you. Could you give us the website address, please, so that people can follow through?
Sure. If anybody wants to go to yoursalempd.com, that's where you could find our frequently asked questions.
yoursalempd.com. Well, thank you for that. All right, first question. What is a body-worn camera and where will officers wear it?
Simply put, it's a digital recording device. It records audio and video footage. I have one here in my hand. As you can see, it's about a little smaller than the average cell phone that you would find here today, and it's about the same weight. And so that, for us, is mounted in the torso area or on the belt line. A lot of our detectives like to wear it along the belt line.
Will every officer wear them?
So when an officer's conducting enforcement activities, yes, they will be wearing them out in the field. And so all patrol officers, you'll see them wearing it somewhere on their torso as it fits with their equipment. And detectives will typically be wearing it, like I said, along the belt line area.
And will all interactions be recorded?
So I would say in casual conversations and things like that, although we'll have the body-worn camera on, there's no requirement for them to be recording at all times. And there are some times where officers may turn the camera off, and there are some restrictions for privacy interests in hospitals and things like that. If someone's receiving medical attention, there's no need to record those types of incidents. But in day-to-day business and enforcement activities, when they're responding to a call for service, the officers will have their body-worn camera on and recording.
Are officers required to inform a person that they are being recorded?
Yes, when practical. So for us, when practicable is if we're responding to an incident, typically as we're getting out of our patrol car or responding to a call, we would tap the body-worn camera. It has a little button here on the front, as you can see. You would tap that twice and it activates the camera system. So when you're stepping out of your patrol car, we're capturing all that footage as we're responding to the scene of an incident.
Are officers permitted to record inside a private residence?
If they're responding to a call for service and it necessitates it for their business at the incident, then yes, absolutely, they would record. And again, they would notify all parties involved that they are recording during that incident.
And what about the recording of minors?
Recording of minors would be permitted as well in the course of their normal business and enforcement activities. It should be noted, though, that anytime these minors are recorded or anything that there's a privacy interest in, if that was ever released, it would be heavily redacted. Faces would be redacted, license plates may be redacted, computer screens, things like that, to ensure that we're protecting the privacy interests of those involved.
What happens if someone does not want to be recorded?
Yeah, and they can make that request. And if it's appropriate and within our directive to not be recorded in a certain circumstance, and it's not in that enforcement capability or a situation which is a heated disturbance or something like that, then the officers may be able to accommodate that request. But in general course of day-to-day business, the camera will be recording when officers are on scene responding to calls for service.
Can officers edit or delete the video recording?
No, the officers don't have any permissions or rights within the software system to edit or delete any body-worn camera footage.
All right. And how long will video recordings be kept?
We have a specific retention schedule. There's the Oregon Revised Statutes provides limitations for that. So all body-worn camera footage must be kept for a minimum of 180 days. We keep it for a minimum of 190 days. And then based on the type of incident that the officer was recording, if it was a felony crime, misdemeanor crime, traffic violation, things like that, there's different retention schedules set, and those are all listed within our website.
Can someone get a copy of a video?
So all public records requests are dealt with through our portal or from a community member coming here to the police department to request that. And just as maybe you couldn't initially get crime scene photos from an incident that's actively being investigated or has yet to be adjudicated, those would not be releasable. But other times when the case is resolved and has been adjudicated, that body camera footage may be releasable in that circumstance.
Where can people find these frequently asked questions?
So for the frequently asked questions, as well as all the information related to our body-worn camera program, that can all be found at yoursalempd.com. It has a wealth of information on that website.
Well, thank you for that. I want to know bluntly, what is needed to make this body camera program work to achieve transparency, privacy, but most of all, build community trust? What's key to that for you?
I think consistency of use amongst our officers, consistency of our directives as far as what we release to the public and at what time, so people get more comfortable with the day-to-day product that we're able to put out in the community and how we're able to share our message. There are many instances where, like I mentioned before, we'll have active cases and we may not be able to release footage because we have constraints based on the Oregon law, based on the local district attorney's office that's actively attempting to prosecute a case. That's not because we don't want to release the footage and show the community the work that we're doing. It's simply because we have constraints as well. And so I think if they consistently know that at certain periods of time, I'll be able to view camera footage. At other times, it's not the police department's choice. We just have constraints of when we can let the community view that footage. I think that people will become more comfortable with the program.
This is all, again, part of principled policing. And just help us understand what excites you about that. What are the tenets of it?
For me, principled policing is all about quality interactions and quality decision making by our officers. So when we respond to the scene of an incident, people want to know that they're valued and heard, and that the officer understands and considers their point of view on these when they're making these decisions that are affecting their lives. And so being principled in those circumstances and helping the community to trust that our officers are doing the best they can with the environment they're given, I think that goes a long way to building overall trust within the community between the police department and just the community at large.
Your website has so much information on it. Can you kind of give us a capsule summary of what people can find about the body camera program on your website?
Sure. So they could find information about the notifications that officers should be making when they respond on scene and they're recording an incident. They can find information about our retention schedule for how long videos are kept. And they can find our policy as well. So you can view the entirety of our department policy that is a wealth of information about how the program was designed and is employed day to day in the community.
I like the fact that you started this whole program by talking about this was a community initiative in one way. They liked the idea of police wearing body cameras. Am I correct about that?
Yes, like I said, this bubbled up over a number of years, and just the financial constraints that we had here really limited us to be able to implement a program such as this. So we're entirely grateful to the community for seeing that the need that we had, not only for our investigative processes, but also just to build trust with the community and transparency.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This is such a big topic. We're going to be doing more exploring with it, but you've given us a huge leg up with all this information. So thank you. Detailed answers. Appreciate it. We've been talking on InSight today with Acting Deputy Chief Brandon Ditto of the Salem Police Department. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Wendy.
And thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.